All right, so let's get started. It's 1 minute past 1, so we're officially started on the Newcomers tutorial. This thing is usually run by Mike Hughes, and who unfortunately is not attending this NANOG. Now, when the program committee assigned me to do this, I felt I was probably the next most informed compared to Mike, but it turns out that Mike is from England, and he just spells a lot of things differently. And people just wanted somebody who doesn't need to fix things, so because we spell the same way as Mike does, it turned out it was me. So I'm here in front of you guys trying to tell you what NANOG is about. And this should be a very casual, fun session where we're just trying to exchange information. I'm going to tell you what I've seen in the past and educate some of you guys on what to expect out of NANOG. So just a straw poll. How many people, this is your first NANOG meeting? Right, I hate it when organizers do that, when they lift their hands as well. You know, you go skydiving, and the instructor says, is this your first dive? Not a good thing. Confidence wrecking, actually. So are you on the NANOG mailing list? Great, okay. Do you actually read the NANOG mailing list? See, lesser hands come up. But it's fun. It's a lot of activity going on, and there is definitely a lot of excitement that happens there. Have you been to any network ops or SysAd conferences before? Great. Okay, so what you're going to get in the rest of the presentation is a brain dump from me on what to expect and how to fit in and so on and so forth, and how to get the maximum value out of this conference. Is anybody local here? All right, great. You guys need to help us on where we can find food late night, because I was starving last night and I had to get pizza in my room, which was horrible. Okay, so this is the most important slide for the tutorial. I want to make sure you guys pay particular attention to this one. This is my secret guide on how to blend in. Don't come with notepads and pens to NANOG. It's just, you're not going to fit in. You need laptops, you need them open while presentations are going on. If you sit with a notepad and try to take notes, it's you know, you kind of stick out. Put stickers on your laptops, plenty of them, all kinds arranged in weird shapes and patterns. Dress casually. Wear oversized t-shirts, you know, loose t-shirts. In fact, I would go to the extreme and say, do not wear suits or ties, because people often confuse you to hotel staff when you do that, and it's not a good thing to be considered a hotel staff. Wear your badges as well, that's a good indication. What is considered super cool is wearing the conference shirt that you just picked up. And I don't even know how or where people switch them, but all of a sudden I see people wearing shirts that were just handed out like 5 minutes ago. So that's considered pretty normal and pretty cool. Finally, geeky t-shirts are the best, and I highly encourage this. If you really want to fit in, you need to wear some really geeky shirts. And here's an example, right? There's no place like localhost. Old-fashioned. Happened in NANOG like 10 years ago. People start getting a little trendy, start putting different things, but it's still old-fashioned. What is trendy and in fashion right now is this particular shirt. If you guys can see that at the back. So don't afraid to be expressive and wear all kinds of funky stuff. All right, so getting serious, what are you guys expecting out of NANOG? And this can be more interactive from this point onward. You know, a lot of you are here to attend the conference, gain knowledge. A lot of you are here because your in-laws stay in Denver. A lot of you are here because you just like free beer and booze. And all these are good reasons, but fundamentally NANOG is about networking. It's about meeting people in your community, and that's where you get the most value out of NANOG. So I would highly recommend people not to just sit and listen to the meetings, but also meet new people, network, talk to people. And one of the things I'm going to do next is show you some colored badges. These are basically representing what the hierarchy of NANOG is, what the organization is. So you can pick the right color and bug these people for help. And that's kind of the idea. And believe it or not, a lot of business gets done at NANOG. A lot of contracts are signed, a lot of customers are found, and so on. So this is really an important conference or a meeting for you guys to attend, not just from the learning perspective, but also from a business perspective. So keep this in mind and drive this point through if your managers or bosses ask you to justify what's the value out of NANOG. So here's a very high-level breakdown on how the meeting is organized. You basically have tutorials, which is typically run on Sundays. There are plenty of interesting tutorials, and they evolve over time. So you might see the same set of tutorials in previous agendas, but they have evolved over time. So there's a BGP tutorial, sometimes there's a DNS tutorial. Check out the agenda. These tutorials are arranged as tracks, so you would see them go in parallel, and you need to kind of pick what you prefer most or what you like most. But tutorials are really interesting. They are very detailed and they're very technical, so it's a great way to come up to speed and pick the expert brains, so to say, in terms of BGP or security or so on, even IPv6 if you're interested. The main event is the general session talks. And these are talks that cover a wide spectrum of topics, right from the most controversial topics to the most boring topics. So everything is covered in this general session. The program committee is primarily responsible. The key thing to note here is, unlike a lot of other conferences or meetings that are industry related where people come and flash their products and so on and use it as a podium or a venue to advertise the products, NANOG is really about technical merit. So all the talks that are in there in the general session, they are not marketing talks. They are all about technical content. It's very focused on technology, latest trends, and so on. And it's a technical audience. So if it's your first NANOG and you have attended other industry conferences, you might find that a little different, but it's fun. You also have tracks and BOFs. BOF stands for birds of feather. Tracks and BOFs have been used interchangeably in the past, and I'll go into a little more detail as we step through the presentation. But essentially, these are parallel tracks that run towards the later half of the day, where we split into groups, and each group has a separate thing. So there's an IPv6 track, or there's a DNS track. There used to be a research forum track, which we don't have at this time, but we typically have it every now and then. So these tracks are meant to be more focused to specific interest groups, whereas the broader interest topics are in the general session. There is also Beer and Gear. How many people have attended Beer and Gear in the past? All right. So I highly recommend you guys to go to this event, which is in the evenings. It's actually the evening. And it's basically a big room with food, drinks, and vendors trying to display their products and so on. So if you were one of those unfortunate guys whose baggage got misplaced by your airline and you're left with no clothes other than the one you're wearing, you need to go to Beer and Gear, because that's where you'll get a lot of T-shirts and stuff you can wear and so on. The other mistake that I used to do when I was first attending NANOG was I used to bring a small bag which was just about completely packed, and then I would end up picking a lot of stuff in Beer and Gear, like goodies, gadgets, and so on, which would not fit in. So if it's your first time, you're probably not prepared, but next time bring a bigger bag. There's also, the common area, open seating, terminal room. Newcomer? It's okay, no worries. I actually just turned off my cell phone like 2 minutes ago. But there is a lot of common area. People sit in the lobby, access the internet. One of the best things about NANOG is connectivity is considered really seriously here. So you would have the best internet connectivity, V6 connectivity, DNSSEC, IP over, whatever you want. You'll get everything here pretty much. So you should enjoy the best connectivity. You should enjoy a good networking experience, and feel free to use your laptops wherever you want, even in the restrooms if it matters. Then we have breaks and lunch. So that's kind of the high-level organization of how the meeting is structured. So what exactly is NANOG? Who is NANOG? NANOG is a community. That's the bottom line. You are a part of NANOG. Everybody has a voice. And you get to say whatever you want to say. You get to voice your opinion. So there's two ways, or many ways, you can help NANOG. One of them is to vote for the steering committee. The steering committee is sort of the big boss of NANOG, and they will make all the decisions around, how the things are structured and, political issues and so on. So it's important that you get your say, you vote for the steering committee. You can also have feedback in the form of the community meeting, which is held later today. And I would encourage you guys to go there, actually, if you want to learn what's going on behind the scenes. Name badges. So we all have these, and there's a wide spectrum of name badges, and we'll go over that in a second. But this is a photo of Ren wearing a bunch of name badges. It's just pretty cool. So here's what a name badge looks like. You have, typical, and it changes, and I'm sorry, this is from the last NANOG, but it looks a little different now. But you typically have the NANOG, the number of the NANOG 52 or 51, and then you have an AS number next to it, and your name and affiliation. One particular event I remember very well from one of the older NANOGs a few years ago was when the organizers accidentally skipped the last letter in the AS numbers. And that was pretty cool. We got, badges like AT&T with AS number 701, so it was a lot of confusion. People didn't know what actually was going on. So here's something important to distinguish colored badges. You have this really funky looking blue color, which is not quite how the name badges look, but if you see a blue badge, a blue color on the top here, then you're looking at a steering committee member. These are the guys who are the big bosses of NANOG, so to say. So you could talk to them about issues that you think are relevant. That's the program committee, yellow if you can spot. We are the ones responsible for the exciting or boring content in the program, whatever way you look at it. And we actually have to work really hard to recruit talks and to filter talks and so on. So we're ultimately responsible if you have comments on how the program was, or you need to give us feedback or need to yell at us. Spot the yellow ones. If you need to yell at us, don't spot me, but any other yellow badge is fine. Then the red ones or the pink ones, depending on the mood of the printer, is the communications committee. So these are the committee that is responsible for marketing and establishing email communications and so on. So you'll see a bunch of them. Feel free to ask them about policies regarding communications. The merit staff, which is the staff that actually runs the backbones here and the logistics of the meeting, etc., is carrying a green badge. So things like internet not working or stuff like that is, you probably want to look for the green badges. There's also a bunch of dots that you would be provided. And one of them is the PGP key signing dot. Then there's the peering coordinator. So you can flash these dots on your badges, or you can identify other people with these dots and talk about issues. And there's also the network security dot, which is the black dot. So NUNOG. How many people have heard of NUNOG? All right, so NUNOG is a new entity that was formed it's been about a year and a half or so that it's coming in place. But Merit has been the organization that has been behind the scenes and helping run NANOG, get all the logistics in place. And NUNOG is a new nonprofit entity that is being formed to run NANOG. So that's the way NUNOG is structured. Now, the key thing for you guys to keep in mind is this is a transition period. So there is Merit that was running, and now NUNOG is coming into place. Last NANOG was the one that Merit kind of officially ran entirely. And this NANOG is being run by NUNOG, but Merit is also helping out in the logistics to ensure a smooth transition. From next NANOG onwards, NUNOG is the one that's going to run the show in terms of logistics and organization and so on. So they have control of the financials of NANOG and the logistics, etc. And there is the community meeting later today where there's a lot of questions that are going to be raised about NewNog, how things are going to transition and so on. I'd encourage you guys to go attend that meeting. It's usually a good chance to get to know the inner workings of NANOG and to actually see some of the people who run the show face to face. So that's just a brief information on community meeting. It's today at 5:45. You'd get to know what's happening behind the scenes. You would get a chance to know what the steering committee looks like, what the NewNog membership looks like. And you get to ask some tough questions around the organization and the involvement of steering committee. Okay, so just making sense of the agenda. There's general sessions, there's BOFs, there's tutorials, there is other kinds of events like key signings, etc., and there is a lot of other interesting things. So one of the first decisions you need to make is which track to attend when there are multiple tracks. As I mentioned, tracks often overlap, so look at your programs and see which track is covering the interests that align with you. There's also special interest groups which are more informal kind of BOFs that are signed up. There is a BOF sign-up sheet next to the registration area. If you have a topic in mind that you want to get a set of people together, you just write it over there and people will start to sign up over there and understand, and then you can get together in a room and discuss things. There are some assigned seating, I believe, for some rooms which are reserved for this kind of informal BOFs, but we need to check on that. And the other thing that happens is, a lot of people just get together informally in the lobbies around the seating areas and form an informal discussion group around something. So one way to get involved in this is say something controversial like DNSSEC sucks or IPv6 rocks or something, and then you immediately partition the crowd and you can figure out where you fit in and just go in and make yourself at home. So, but be careful about what you say. One of the most interesting things, parts, and this is really my favorite, these are lightning talks. There are 2 sessions usually, 10-minute talks, and these are really intense and very well done talks. Usually, very fast-paced, may or may not have slides, but some of the most controversial issues are presented here. And I would encourage you guys to attend this session. This is on Monday and Tuesday, I believe, or actually Tuesday and Wednesday, I believe. But just double-check the agenda. And if you actually have a topic in mind that you want to share, you could go through some past lightning talks to get a sense of what these talks are about. You could also do that. Okay, so one of the things you'll notice in NANOG is that most talks are followed by a lot of questions. And a lot of times these questions are pretty pointed and pretty combative. And that's fun. So the point I'm trying to make is don't be afraid to ask questions. A lot of times there's a controversial discussion or almost a pseudo fight going on between the presenter and the person asking questions. As a program committee and as a part of the committee, we don't encourage that, but we do love to watch it. It's a lot of fun. But one of the important things, if you do end up going there and asking a question, is to state your name and affiliation. That's important for people to know who you are. There's lots of mics, and if you haven't been to the grand ballroom yet, it's a big room, and there'll be multiple presentation area, multiple alleys, and so on. Beer and Gear, this is something I mentioned earlier, a fun event in the evening on Monday. It's a bunch of vendors putting up stalls, giving out freebies and goodies, and you would get a chance to get some really good food. That's a picture of the buffet at Beer and Gear. Yeah, I don't remember which one this was, but it's pretty good. So breakfast, if for some of you guys who are not out late night partying and actually get up in the morning, you would be served breakfast here in the common lobby areas. So breakfast is pretty good. I typically almost always miss those, but I believe they're there somewhere. I haven't seen them. And Mike vouches for them as well. So make sure you make the most of it. There is breaks which are sponsored by vendors or organizations between the event, between the talks. So maybe like 10:30 or 3:30 or some time around that. And those breaks will also carry some snacks, coffee, etc. So You will be well fed overall, right from the morning to the evening, except for maybe lunch, which is on your own. So lunch, the reason people prefer lunch being, an on-your-own event is because people just like to make their own small groups and talk about business or, ideas that they share, etc., and so forth. So feel free to just grab people that are walking alone or in groups, or just, join in and have fun over lunch. I believe there's lots of places around. I haven't really walked around, but that's typically the case, so you will find some places. And the lunch sessions are typically 90 minutes, so you do have a lot of time to network and chat and etc. Okay, so this is something I mentioned to you earlier as well. It's not just about the talks. It's really a networking event in, a dual sense of the way. We also try to publish the attendee list. So if you have been thinking about stalking some people from different organizations, this is your chance to actually go through the list. Some of us are probably not listed there, but you would get a majority of people listed on the attendee list. So you can actually target people, and if you don't really know what somebody looks like, you can find one of those guys wearing a yellow badge or a blue badge and ask them around, or email these guys. Network in the hallways, and NANOG is known for some really good socials. So okay, that's not a social, that was a misplaced slide. Gosh, I can't even blame Microsoft here because this is a keynote presentation. Anyways, so I'll talk about socials in a bit, but this is something that is being done this time. There is this NOG Lab, which is a participative collaborative effort by a bunch of vendors who are displaying IPv6 capabilities. So it's a chance for you to go and see how IPv6 runs and IPv6 in action. Something I'm going to go check out later as well. So definitely would like you guys to check it out. These are the times listed. It's today as well. Okay, coming back to the more important stuff. Socials. There's always something going on in the night, in the evenings. And it's typically a fun event. It's loud, so make sure you drink a lot of water before these events so you can scream and talk to people. All attendees are welcome. Don't get intimidated. Just walk in there and have fun, talk to people. Just enjoy yourself. Surveys is another important thing. As an organization, it's important for us to understand how you felt about the conference and the event. So make sure you take surveys, especially give feedback along the lines of what you liked about the program, what you didn't like. Keep it sort of, not too critical in the sense, don't use swear words, for example. But what is important from the surveys is that if you are the lucky one to actually, be picked, you get a good, cool iPad or something like that. That's happened in the past, and it's been really helpful for the person who got the iPad. Another event that I'd like you guys to attend, if you have time, is the Newcomers Breakfast. This is a very well thought out breakfast event where people sit in sort of round tables, and there is some networking going on. There is some kind of introduction and orientation. It's sort of a follow through to the Newcomers tutorial. So think of it as a Newcomers tutorial, but better run and with food. So that's kind of the Newcomers Breakfast. Tom Daly, who's the guy in the picture, usually not so serious looking. Somehow in this one, he looks a little serious, but usually he's smiling. So you can talk to him. He's the organizer of this event. That brings me to my last slide and questions. So at the end of this presentation, I can answer questions. Usually there is somebody else from the program committee sitting somewhere who helps me out, but I guess they just put me up here and I don't see anybody around. So it's all me. Shoot away if you have any questions. Yes, you can walk up to the mic. Okay, so the question is, where can you pick up slides before the people talk? The program, the agenda on the website for NANOG 52 will have links to the slides, and you can actually pull them down from there. In most cases, the slides are the same that the speakers use, but once in a while the speakers make some changes last minute because they realize they put their affiliation as their old employer or something, and so they want to change that part. And that there are some small or minor changes, but usually they are on the link of the conference site, and you can pull them up. Thank you. Yeah, that's Sue from Merit, behind, in case you're wondering where the voice is coming from. So any other questions? One of the things I mentioned about NANOG, people always ask questions, so you need to ask some questions. All right, we're going to have to just sit here for the next 15 minutes and look at each other, unless you guys have some questions. And I didn't, unfortunately, have any canned questions for this one. But anyways, I guess, guys, thanks a lot for attending this, and I hope this has been useful. Again, if you want to ask some questions out of band, you can contact me. You know what I look like, or find anybody else from the program or steering committee. Last but not least, enjoy NANOG. I think it's going to be a great event, and you guys are really going to have a lot of fun. So have fun, take care, and have a nice day.